A senior Iranian lawmaker, Ibrahim Rezai, said that Pakistan lacks credibility in mediation in the ongoing war. And this was just weeks prior. And this is because they're being biased towards US interests. Now, similar statements are arising in the US against Pakistan. A new US report, it highlights Pakistan's duplicity and its double games. Here's what happened. After US announced a ceasefire with Iran in early April on the request of Pakistan, but reportedly just days later, Islamabad quietly allowed multiple Iranian military aircraft to park at Pakistan's strategic Noor Khan Air Base, keeping them safe from American attacks. And this is what an explosive report by CBS claims. And it is quoting US officials. By the way, Noor Khan Air Base is the same one where US military assets are also deployed. Coming back to the report, when a senior Pakistan official was questioned, there was an outright rejection of these claims. But within hours, Pakistan accepted that yes, Iranian aircraft came to Pakistan temporarily and are currently still parked in Pakistan. Now, a US senator is asking for a complete re-evaluation of Pakistan's role as the mediator between US and Iran. And after the report surfaced, the Chinese foreign minister, Pakistan's friend, Wang Yi, called on Pakistan to step up mediation efforts and properly address the Strait of Hormuz deadlock, because that also affects China. So essentially, US and Iran are both calling out Pakistan for not handling the mediation properly, even hinting at a double game, while friend China is raising questions on the mediation effort. Question is, who is Pakistan really mediating for? I'm Shivan Chanana, this is Game Plan, and joining me is Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former Indian diplomat and distinguished fellow, VIF, having served in Indian missions in the US, Russia, Europe, and West Asia. Ambassador, thanks so much for making time. Whose interests is Pakistan serving? Sir.
Pakistan is actually serving its own interest. It wants to stay relevant, and it is not that it has been a very trusted partner or ally, but it has very ably, I must say, been able to use its nuisance value with all the superpowers and all the major regional powers. Today, Pakistan, why it went up into the mediation metrics was because Pakistan, you remember, the few days ago had signed a mutual defense security agreement with Saudi Arabia, which clearly outlined that in case Saudi Arabia is attacked, Pakistan will go there. The Pakistan, because of its domestic problems and the Shia population, cannot take on and go and fight Iran, which is its immediate neighbor also. Now, in that sense, this is a major problem. Secondly, you have to look at it that after Operation Sindoor, President Trump has also given a lot of leeway to Pakistan, especially the General Asim Munir. And he continuously calls upon him and all that. That's how Pakistan got this traction and tried to provide the kind of platform it is there. As far as parking of the aircrafts are concerned, if you remember, in nearly all wars, most of the places, the countries try to save their aircrafts because against the US-Israeli might, it would have been totally demolished. Now, whether it can be held against them is a question that will have to be signed. Still, we heard that last time there were a lot of planes there for in Central Asia. They were parked there also. So this is something that can continue to be debated. Nobody trusts Pakistan, in my view, as they say, but at the same time, they use him as a useful kit. And Pakistan makes hay through these things. You know, the Americans have sanctioned some $500 million to them, basically for the F-16, providing them all kinds of assistance that they need. They have also been going and talking to the Chinese. So they are trying to say that we are serving everybody's interest, but while they are doing their own only to stay out of trouble. That is the most important thing.
Ambassador, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. Let me come there. There's a recent report that has surfaced that Saudi Arabia, in fact, had carried out attacks, and I would say counterattacks against Iran. This was during the hostilities just in the previous month. Now, as per that pact that you also mentioned, the defense agreement that Pakistan has with Saudi Arabia, if one is attacked, both are compelled to respond. Where was Pakistan when Saudi Arabia was getting attacked? How do you assess this one?
You see, that is precisely the case. I mean, the Pakistan got into this mediation act, and that was essentially trying to say that we are trying to stop Iran from attacking the Gulf countries, which has not happened till date. Of course, there is a ceasefire, and Saudis have directly been talking to the Iranians also. I mean, in last few days, we have seen 4 or 5 times their foreign ministers have spoken. No doubt there are reports that the Saudis, in the beginning, if you remember the war, both the Saudis and the Emiratis were pretty much on the side of this American adventurism, which has not paid off. And they, in fact, lost a lot, and they thought that eventually this so-called security is not being provided to them, or this umbrella no longer exists. So they also got disenchanted by the U.S. inefficacy to protect them. And so all these countries are playing both games, diplomacy, as well as for their own domestic consumption, trying to do, because they have much more to lose, as you know, compared to Iran. Iran is today in a position where they are fight to the finish for them. So that's why they are continuing to have these maximalist positions while wanting some kind of a ceasefire. So they think that as if they have nothing to lose, and this kind of a war and attacks from both US and Israel is keeping their country united to a great extent. And therefore, it served their purpose. On the other hand, as you know, Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu wants the wars to continue. That helps him also in continuing in the political domain. As far as US is concerned, now President Trump doesn't know how to retract from this war and not lose the face. They have actually lost a great deal of reputational credit, I believe, and simultaneously the Iranians have developed a greater reputational advantage in this whole war that is going on. So it has not served anybody's purpose, rather than most of the countries in Asia and elsewhere are suffering because of the double blockade that is going on there. So hopefully during the visit of President Trump to China now, we might see, because there are two, let's remember, while China can control Iran, Israel can only be controlled by the US. So therefore, both these countries, when they are talking to each other and wanting this Hormuz to open and the war to have a prolonged ceasefire or some kind of a peace, that will be good for the region and beyond.
Ambassador, let me quickly also get your assessment on Pakistani foreign policy. They condemned the attacks on Iran and they only condemned Israel for those attacks, but it was a joint operation between US and Israel. And they did not mention US for obvious reasons. Then when it comes to the attacks on Qatar and UAE, they condemned the attacks on Qatar, they condemned the attacks on UAE and on Saudi Arabia, but they weren't there to defend Saudi Arabia when Saudi Arabia now, as per reports, was anyways fighting back on its own. At the same time, they were sheltering military assets of the attacker nation, which is Iran, when they were compelled to be defending Saudi Arabia and attacking Iran. Where does this really leave Pakistani foreign ministry? Who are they with? Who are they against?
Well, Pakistan, I think, is run by the military. And there's one country, and most countries own a military, and Pakistan military owns the country. I mean, that is the thing. So all decisions that are taken by the military in that sense. And the reactions are there, which are then repeated by the Foreign Office or by the Prime Minister and others. But look at it from the other angle also. In the meantime, while they were also trying to bring about the ceasefire and talking to everybody, they also deployed about 25 or 13,000, 15,000 troops and several of their aircrafts to Saudi Arabia. Already they have about 25,000 forces deployed across Saudi Arabia for years, and they are very well embedded in their system. So I think that the Saudis also know it, that if the war goes on, whether it is Pakistan fighting for them or anybody else fighting, it will be very difficult for them to survive out of this. All their refineries and the desalination plants and all that are the fair target in that case. So even these countries don't want an open kind of a war, because they also want some kind of because US umbrella has proved completely ineffective for them. And that's why they are having a big rethink. Now, Pakistan, in any case, is incapable of supporting them. What it has been doing is providing a psychological thing against the Israeli nuclear bomb, saying that they have the Islamic bomb, which can be deployed just in case. So they are condemning selectively, as you know, and just to garner these kind of brownie points with their so-called strategic partners.
Ambassador Trigunayat, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your assessment on this matter, because this remains a question on whose side Pakistan is really on, because both Iran and US and now even China is urging Pakistan to do more in their mediation effort. Questions are being raised among their closest partners as well. Let's wait and watch how this one pans out. Thank you so much. That was Ambassador Trigunayat joining us here on Game Plan.